convicted rapist released on parole in December and accused of committing another rape in January is now also facing new assault charges.
Those charges stem from a violent incident in the prison last year, months before Christopher Browning was released.
KSL investigator Daniela Rivera has been digging into why it took more than a year for charges to be filed and whether that delay impacted the parole board's decision.
Christopher Browning spent 24 years inside Utah's prison for breaking into a woman's home in 1998 and raping her. Just 1 month after his release in December,
it was very brutal, very cruel.
Susan says Browning violently attacked and raped her.
The first thing he said is, well, since I'm going back to prison, I'm going to make it worth my while.
Susan, in her 70s, had befriended Browning through her work as a prisoner advocate. She knew Browning had gotten into fights in prison, and audio recordings from his parole hearings reveal Utah's parole board knew that too.
But I do still have an anger problem that I need to address.
And yet he was released.
But Utah's Department of Corrections confirmed to the KSL investigators that the parole board did not know about Browning's recent felony assault case. According to court documents, prison surveillance video shows Browning charge 2 inmates, knocking them both to the ground. One hit his head on the concrete and was knocked unconscious. Browning is then seen punching 2 more inmates. The documents say that all happened in May last year, but the charges weren't filed until June this year. So the KSL investigators asked, why the delay?
I think we have to remember that these aren't the only cases the DA's office is prosecuting. It's not the only cases investigators are investigating.
Tyler Johnson is the Utah Department of Corrections Law Enforcement Bureau Chief. He blames workflow and technical issues, saying they tried to submit the case to prosecutors last July, but the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office had switched to a new case management system.
There's this workflow loop, right? You follow up on your case, and then you move on to others, and then you get back to it. So, just that time between those follow-ups to see if they got the information they needed, finding out they didn't, and then reattempting probably caused some of that delay.
In a statement, Salt Lake County DA Sim Gill told us the case was properly uploaded to their system in June of this year, and within 6 days, they screened and filed the case. During those months of delays, Johnson says corrections officials failed to notify the parole board about the investigation and the pending case before Browning was released.
A communication breakdown.
Is it possible that had they received that information as they were considering his release, they might have made a different decision?
Oh, yeah, it's always possible. And, I don't want to speculate on what decision they would have made. Typically, they could, rescind his parole date, push it out farther. It's hard to say.
Johnson says Utah's Department of Corrections changed its policy in February. Now, the parole board must be notified of a new investigation by the Law Enforcement Bureau within 2 business days. Browning has pleaded not guilty in the rape case. He has not yet entered a plea in the assault case. Mike and Dini.